the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
All right, Liz Mooney, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so
excited to have you. I had such a good time chatting with you after watching your show. It's been a while, and I bumped into you, I think, a couple times. But excited to have you on.
Yeah.
You are one of the groups. Like I've been watching comedy here locally enough to see like the new classes come and go.
Oh,
so you're
okay.
kind of one of the newer classes, right? You're coming up probably on what, like your 2-year anniversary, maybe?
Yeah, I'll be 2 years and 2 months.
Wow, 2 years in.
Yeah.
Does it feel like a long 2 years, a fast 2 years?
I think it feels fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look back and I'm like, it doesn't seem that long ago. I still feel very new, but I'm also like, dang, there's so much I want to accomplish and I haven't.
Yeah. That's been the biggest thing I've learned just talking to comics in here, seeing everybody at their different years of, doing this. Just as soon, it's like life, right? Like as soon as you think you have something figured out, you realize there's another level and then you feel brand new again.
Yeah.
But 2 years is like, at this point, you're not quitting it. And I think that's a really exciting point for a comic,
Yeah, that's what makes me excited about it is I feel like there's, I've never done anything like this. I've never done a creative field or anything. And I came into it not expecting to pursue it. And now I'm like, oh, I could potentially actually make something out of this.
So even like when you went to college, no like creative courses or anything ever struck you?
I mean, I took creative courses because I went to a liberal arts school.
Oh, okay.
But
so like what were some of the classes that would be like artistic classes that you took?
I took theater. Because I heard it was easy and my friend's aunt was teaching it. But I was terrible.
Did you get to do a performance?
Yeah, that was like not like one in front of an actual crowd, just in front of our class.
Mm-hmm.
But it went so badly.
Yeah. How big of a part did you have?
There were only 2 roles.
Oh, so it's just you and one other person up there?
Yeah, well, we had like groups where we had to put on like our own.
Yeah, but still, that's like, so it's 2 pieces of dialogue, basically.
Yeah. And
yeah, that's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and I got up there just like my anxiety, I just froze.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, the teacher got up in front of the class and was like, sometimes you take risks and they don't work out.
To think about you now getting up on stage all the time compared to that person, that's got to feel pretty good, right?
Yeah, I don't think that person, like I didn't take that class to see if I had a knack for it. Like that person didn't. I wasn't anticipating ever pursuing something like this. Yeah.
Did that stage performance come into your mind at all when you started getting on a comedy stage? Were you thinking,
still comes
God,
into my mind.
Really?
You
still get it in there?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Well, not in like a nervous way, but in a like, if I embarrass myself like that, who cares what else I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've had to embarrass yourself at some point now if you've been doing comedy for 2 years, right? Nobody gets through this without having a terrible set, right?
You're not doing it right if you're not embarrassing yourself regularly. Like you're not taking enough risks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had a set yet that was more embarrassing than the most embarrassing thing outside of comedy that you've ever had happen to you? Like, has it been that bad yet?
I've had some bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say no, just because you kind of expect that in comedy.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
and real life's brutal anyway.
Yeah, I've had ones where I'm like, I've had friends, or maybe that was like a comic's first time seeing me, and it's like, yeah. Yeah.
I just watched excuse me, I can't remember his name right now, but I'm going to write an article about this comedy special I saw. And it's called Lo-Fi, and Sam Talent produced it. I got to look up the guy's name real quick. He's from Louisiana, but whenever I was watching it, Andrew Polk, he's not like a very well-known guy or anything, but he's from Louisiana, put out this independent special. It's super funny. But in his special, he has like the coworkers in the front row.
Oh.
And I thought like, wow, what a relatable, like the fact that that's in your comedy special. And that's so many people's experience where they're trying to do this, and the friends and family want to come support. But that's also got to be mortifying, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a risk too, because the people who know you are never going to react the same as like a typical audience member, good and bad. Right?
I think you had some coworkers when I went to your girls' night out show.
I did.
Yeah. How does that go when you go back to work?
It's cool.
I mean, you don't say anything too crazy, but still.
Yeah, like this, if any of my coworkers are watching, sorry. But I only invite the people who I know are going to be cool about it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, anyone's welcome to come, but I don't go out there and like
You're not
go out of
papering
my
the
way
office.
to, yeah. So I invite the people who I know are there. Yeah, they won't care.
Yeah. Did you hear anything like back at work? Was it like, oh, you're so funny, or like, hey?
Yeah.
Like no comment at all.
That show was good feedback. They were like, oh yeah, you're really funny, whatever. But there have been a couple where it's like, yeah, she does comedy. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a whole different side they don't get to see?
Yeah,
I don't mean this in the bad way, but I feel like you're mature enough. You're not like trying to crack all the jokes at the office all the time.
No.
You're probably just doing work, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I'm also pretty ADD. So like when I'm there and I'm like on my ad, it's like I'm in this, I don't know. But I also, I'm a pretty friendly person, but yeah, I'm not like quirky and weird and out there at work. Yeah. And I work with a bunch of accountants.
Yeah. I remember you telling me you're a CPA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just wouldn't fit.
Did you ever watch Parks and Recreation?
Yeah.
I love when Ben Wyatt, when he becomes the funniest guy in the office, when he goes to work for like the really stuffy accounting firm, and it's like that's one of my favorite running bits where they can't get enough of his hilarity all the time.
Yeah, I love him. I get compared to Aubrey Plaza a lot in that.
I can see
April
that.
Ludgate. Yeah.
Well, just because you're deadpan, you're dry. Yeah, I see that. Man, did you hear about her husband?
Yeah,
so sad.
I know.
I mean, it's sad when it happens to anybody, but you're like, that those actors who have like that real tough exterior, probably not that way in real life. And so you're like, God, I bet that hits extra hard. But
yeah, and it's anyone who has that, you can just tell with certain people, it's like, I'm sure she struggled with her own like mental health issues. And then for her husband to go that way, and now she's kind of left to deal with that on her own. It's just, it's tough. I saw that and my stomach turned. I was just, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, you don't expect it to happen to anyone, but you're just like, oh, not her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that, but you were saying people with their own mental, issues. That's why they get doing that type of humor and that type of comedy. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So is the same true for you?
Yeah. I think a lot of people look at me and they're, assume there was, a typical upbringing and stuff. And in some ways there were, but I think I also was brought up in a very complex, just weird, not typical household. And there was a lot of stuff I dealt with that I just use comedy to make light of now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if are you familiar with Mike Lucas?
No.
He's kind of newer in this scene, but he's like a legend. He's been has been on all the late night shows. He was a Second City guy, like worked with some huge names. Mm-hmm. But he's teaching now at DCC.
Oh, okay.
Dallas Comedy Club. And I'm TAing for him. So getting to know him, and he talks about like,
hold on one second.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we had a weird sound thing going on.
Yeah.
Sorry, we were talking about your TAing for the new teacher down at DCC.
Yeah, Mike Lucas. Mm-hmm. He's great. I say he's new in this scene because he took a few years off to raise his family and stuff, but now he's back. And yeah, one of his big things is he talks about, I think it's good now, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. Sorry, that was my panic checking. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
He talks about like having a comedy lens and how to create that. And one of the questions he asks is, when in your life are you the funniest? And mine has always been when I'm struggling, or like when I'm in a group and we're all struggling together. And so I think that's where I find a lot of funny is like, this sucks, but let's find some fun and good in it too. And so I think that's, going back to Aubrey Plaza, a lot of people who have struggled with certain things, that's where they find it.
Hold on, it is bad.
I know.
All right, let's try it again. Sorry, okay. I'm so sorry. No, you're the only guest I've had this many audio issues with.
I'm just a troublemaker. It's fine.
It's a sign. Don't release this episode. I'm just watching it to see if anything happens right now. There's just this annoying click that keeps coming in our headphones. I don't think it's going on the recording, but who knows? Anyhow, we were talking about finding your funny and problems and sadness and all that being funny things later on.
Yeah, so I think I've always kind of intuitively known that about myself, but then Mike coming in with he's got like a book and everything on it that you can go buy. I think it's called Finding Your Funny Muscle or something. And it kind of helped me identify like, oh, that's why this is my sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think people like Aubrey, you can tell where people's struggles are sometimes and just what they find funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's like when you try to explain it to people who aren't around it, how it becomes like the land of misfit toys for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That this is their place where they can kind of, oh, okay, this is all normal. A lot of other people have all these other problems, and it's not that big of a deal. Here's a group that can cope together.
Yeah, and it's not like a woe is me type, like I'm trying to draw attention to it, but it really is just like that's when I'm my funniest is when there's like struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was uncomfortable for me as a non-comic. The longer I've done this, the more you just kind of you weave in and out of those. Like I wouldn't say I'm in the comedy world with y'all, but I'll see y'all and we have conversations.
You're a big part of it, though.
But it's still, I think there's always a separation if you're not on that stage, right?
Yeah.
And the first year or two, that was still a little uncomfortable when you're like, Jesus, this person just laid a lot out in this. This is the first time I've talked to them, and we've gone into some really deep things.
Yeah.
But then I realized, I actually do enjoy that because it's like you said, it's not a woe is me. It's more of this like I'm very comfortable bearing my things here in a lighthearted way and have a little laugh with it.
Well, and I think it's therapeutic too for like what I love before I started comedy, what I loved just being an audience member was this therapeutic aspect to it where it's like we all have these things that we go through, but it's kind of taboo to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see this person on stage talking about it and you're like, wait, do other people go through that? Like, I can relate to that. I didn't realize this was so universal. And so I think it's very therapeutic to know, like, that's a shared experience. And even if it's not the same experience you have with everyone else, it's like we all have similar, like, emotions that are evoked from different experiences and stuff. So,
have you got to meet or work with Gretchen Young yet?
I've met her. I haven't worked with her yet.
A long time ago, I was talking to her, and because she's always producing something. She's always got a show or a mic going on. And I was asking her, I was like, because open mics, well, you've just gone through it over the last year and a half to 2 years now. That first entry of open mic world is a crazy place. And there's a lot of unique characters that get on stage. And I was asking her, I was like, is there ever a point where you just tell someone like, I'm sorry, you can't do this mic anymore just because it's too weird or too something? And she just kind of point blank was like, I don't think so. She's like, unless it broke a law or something. She kind of told me like, what if this is the thing? Them just getting up here and venting for a moment kept them from going on like a shooting spree.
Yeah.
What if that was just the outlet they needed just to vent, and it wasn't even about comedy? And I was like, well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but on the flip side too, I think it shows, especially newer comics, like what not to do.
Yeah,
as well, because you can feel the room's reaction.
Man, I didn't. My wife won't go to open mics with me anymore. She
Don't
was like,
blame
she's
her.
like, I
Don't
grind my
blame
teeth, and she's like, my head hurts, and she's like, how can you do? But to me, I really enjoy. I've said on here a bunch, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but
No,
I really enjoy seeing that person take a really good idea that's poorly executed, and then like a year or two later, you're like, wow, they turned it around. That's really funny now.
Yeah,
I like seeing that progression, and then it kind of gives you an idea of who's really putting effort in, I guess is a good way to say it.
Yeah, and it's like you see those comics get up and you get this idea of them like, oh, they're not good, like they're never, but then you see them back on stage a few months later and some of them surprise you. And it's like they've paid attention and they've gotten it. And so yeah, the
ability to kind of change to recognize this is what's terrible at it.
Well, and it's because not everyone has that ability.
No.
And so when you see that, you have to give that to them.
Yeah, I was talking about that exact thing to a friend about, I want to get into recording more specials. We did that for Lawrence. I want to record more things. I want to produce more things. And after that, I was very fortunate. I had some people reaching out saying they'd like to work on stuff. But it's kind of that uncomfortable conversation of like, I don't know that. I mean, I know you
don't
feel,
want your name tied.
I know you feel like you're there, but it's probably not there yet.
Yeah.
And that sounds fun to have something recorded and released, but you're not ready for it either. Like, let's wait until you're ready, and then.
But
let's
it's
talk
your
again.
name too.
Yeah, I mean, but you try not to say it that way. Like, you're not good enough for me. Like, you don't want to. I don't mean it like that. But I was explaining to my friend, it's difficult to have that conversation in a way that doesn't hurt someone's feelings when you're dealing with a group of people who already have a lot of, social anxiety, they have a lot of issues. And so you're not trying to discourage, you're just trying to say, like, you can get better than that. Let's get better than that. But really, you're taking these people who have a hard time, as a group anyway, I know there's outliers, but as a group, these are people who maybe haven't achieved a whole lot yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is like probably the hardest they've ever worked in their life at something. And then you're going to come along and go, it's really not good enough though. you know, and it's like, that's a shitty way to do it. But also I think that's important for you to grow. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird. I think in comedy, you come across so many like tough love relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be that way. And it's been so good for me because I struggle with anxiety and I'm not vocal about not taking criticism well, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like I'll be in my head about it, and it's really helped me in that.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a lot of tough conversations with people who are genuinely your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're getting that kind of feedback already though, because you went through a comedy class.
Yeah.
You know how improv's the greatest example of it. You know how just overly positive they are, which is great for them. But I've never been a person to handle that type of constant praise when you don't agree with it. You know?
It is. There's pros and cons to it. I'm taking my first improv class right now.
Oh, so you're experiencing it now?
Weeks. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it is. I don't think. There seems to be less pressure on some of those shows. And I don't mean to sound, maybe I'm just not going and seeing enough improv shows, but it does seem like there's so much more criticism with stand-up. Yeah.
I'll say it. I mean, with improv, I think there is less pressure because I think entry-level improv especially is just terrible. And I think people going to watch it, their family and friends.
Oh, I'm terrible.
They know it's going to be terrible, right? I mean, because that is one thing. We had a friend who went through improv, and it was someone who, I mean, I would have bet all my money that they would never ever get on a stage because it just wasn't their personality.
Yeah.
And we went and watched them maybe 3 or 4 times on different improv shows that they were on. Going through the program. They were going through it at DCH when it was Dallas Comedy House at the old location, and watching them get on stage and like shed that fear and do all that, I was like, that's pretty incredible. And it kind of gave me a new respect of when you see these, masters of improv, once you reach that highest level and you're like, wow, you had to go through a lot of terrible improv performances to get that good.
Well, and I think it's so much more of like, you have to rely on your skill because it's not like you can just write something and work it out and then have that in your back pocket all the time. And so that's what's so impressive to me about it. I'm kind of in awe.
When you see someone who's good at it, they make you feel slow and dull.
And that's like I was saying with Mike Lucas, he was a Second City guy and is also like a phenomenal stand-up. And you can tell when a stand-up also has an improv background. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why I'm not good at improv.
What made you want to include the improv though? What do you think it's going to help with stand-up?
I think I'm super comfortable being myself on stage, but I'm really uncomfortable not being myself on stage, which makes act outs really hard. It makes hosting, I don't have like dry comics have to work at their hosting energy and like finding that balance between being authentic and having that energy. Mm-hmm. And that has kind of felt unnatural to me and I've figured it out, but I think I have. I don't know.
Right. 2 years from now, you'll go, what was she talking about?
Yeah. Like there's some bookers out there maybe like, okay. But I can't think.
Have you got to watch Tyler Elliott?
Yeah.
I've got to watch Tyler Elliott host several times.
Yeah.
And he's exactly what you're talking about, where he should not be a good host.
But he is.
He found a way to work that style into a great host.
But that's the thing, too, is it's such a character he puts on that's what I want to eventually feel comfortable doing. And so I'm hoping improv helps me feel more comfortable getting out of like my own shell.
Maybe it's not even getting out of your shell though. Like, I don't think he's putting on as much of a character as we think he is.
That might be true.
I think that maybe is the real him that he only gets to let out fully on stage.
Yeah.
Maybe that person's in you where you're like,
I had a weird I did 2 shows on Friday at Big Laugh, and I've just been like sleep deprived from work. Work is really tough for me in January. And
yeah, y'all are ramping up right now,
yeah,
aren't you?
Well,
Or y'all, isn't it
just
business is
finished.
offset of personal, right? Like business comes first, doesn't it?
Yeah, but also, yeah, like my big deadline has gone, but I'm catching up on stuff, and I've just been really sleep deprived. And I think the last few weeks I've built up a tolerance to my Adderall prescription. And so like I was taking, like it just wasn't working on Friday, and I show up and I'm like, people are like, "Are you manic right now?" And I'm like, "No, this is how I am when I'm not medicated." Like this is like
This is normal me.
They're like, "Are you on drugs?" And I'm like, "No, this is me not on drugs." And I just get on stage and I'm like nuts. And part of it like worked, and it was just because I kind of let go, and like there was a part, it was just like me stimming on stage, like anxiety, but it worked. And so I think that's what I'm trying to lean into with being authentic and keeping my dry humor. But it's like when I'm feeling that way and I'm just feeling silly and kind of out of it, I don't have to be that dry. I can just lean into like the quirkiness and like. Yeah.
Well, you said you thought it worked. Did it feel good though? Did you like?
Yeah.
Did you have fun while you were doing it that way?
I feel like I've censored, and again, part of my upbringing, but I feel like I've had to censor a lot of myself, and I think it's the first time on stage I really just let go, and I was like, I'm just going to be how I feel in this moment. And it was great. And maybe part of that's like taking improv classes too right now. I feel like even with just 2 classes under my belt right now, I've been able to just let go of so much.
I will say that's the thing that annoys me about improv that I know is probably what makes it great is you'll see them warming up and doing ridiculous, just absurd things to get in that headspace of like, I don't give a shit anymore about what we're doing. Just a total lack of embarrassment.
Yeah.
But I just know if I was there in that group, I would be having a terrible time. But it works. I mean, they love it. They seem to be having a good time.
The first class I was like, why did I do this to myself? This sucks. But then the second class was just, I feel like I just let go of so much on so many levels. It was crazy.
That's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
I think that's some of my favorite comedies where people do let go. I mean, I know obviously people have their material, but you can tell when it's just getting through the words you wrote versus kind of being in that moment. And I don't know how you get in that headspace. I just know I can see the difference, but
yeah, and I've been focusing on that a lot, I think. Like kind of letting, and this sounds terrible, but letting writing take a backseat and taking my like worked out bits and trying them with just trying to find who I am on stage and trying them in different ways. And because I think that's really important too, is like your stage presence is, it sucks when you see someone and you're being talked at instead of it feeling like a conversation.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the hardest part of where you're at right now is what, who are you and who are you on stage and how do you blend those? I was thinking about that. I don't really know. Like if I had to describe my personality and who I am and how I'd want to do an act on stage, it's like, I don't know that I'm that self-aware. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like I'm just like kind of nuts, and I feel like I have different personalities on different days. Sounds like I'm really nuts, but it's
no. You've already explained the medication. I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's like I'm a different person depending on how I'm feeling that day, my energy levels, if I'm stressed or not, and so I think I'm kind of figuring out. I have like different avenues I can take with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you can now that you know you can get on stage and perform and that's not an issue. Yeah. Now you can kind of get loose with it over the next couple of years and just see what it is. I mean, that's got to be a little exciting. I know that's nerve-wracking, but that's freedom. Like you can go up and just do whatever. There's no expectation yet, right? Yeah, and that's what I've liked about just trying on kind of these different energies and I don't know, different hats if you will, but yeah, just seeing what works, what I feel most comfortable doing and yeah. What do you think was your favorite, like the best set you've had so far? Where you got off the stage and you're just like, fuck yeah, that's how comedy's going to go from now on. I'd say Friday was one of them, not because it went the best, but just it was one of the most fun times I've had on stage. Mm-hmm. And so the time where you cut loose the most and kind of through it all, that was your favorite time on stage so far.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think, just like on a personal level, it just felt really liberating.
How much time were you doing?
13.
Yeah.
13.
Are you getting to do more than like 15 minutes yet?
A few times, but not super often.
Yeah.
The most I've done right now, I think, is 20 or 25, maybe. Yeah.
Do you feel like you were stretching it a little? Or did you feel pretty good?
The first time I did 20, I felt like I was stretching it. But after that, no. I think it's something about going from 15 to 20. It's like a huge jump for some reason. And I've heard multiple comics say that.
Okay.
And so, it kind of feels like when you're up there doing like your 5 for the first time, like it's nerve-wracking. And so I was kind of in my head and not present during that. But after that, I've loved doing. You're able to create more of a rapport with the audience and just kind of feel relaxed and get into it with those longer times.
Yeah, it's that's one of the reasons I'd still love going to those open mics too. Is the reminder of just how hard it is to get 15 minutes.
I hate whenever someone's like, "You want to do a guest spot?" It's 5 minutes. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, 5 minutes. I don't know. Isn't it weird how you have a show like Kill Tony where you're only doing a minute, and some people can capitalize on that minute so well. 1 minute, but something about the 5 minutes will seem even harder.
Yeah.
You know,
I couldn't do a minute.
You couldn't do it?
I don't think so.
I know his show gets gets polarizing with people, but I do think the idea, like when he has a regular on there and they have to write a minute every week, that is fascinating to watch when you see somebody do that well.
Yeah.
1 minute every week. And you realize if you did that for a whole year, you would have written 52 minutes. And if only, a quarter of that's good, you've got a pretty solid set now.
Yeah. Well, and I think writing for 1 minute is harder than writing for like 3 or 5 too. Yeah.
Well, because you want to develop something.
Solid.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you establish like a rapport, setup, like all that? How do you establish all that in 1 minute?
Did you go through? You started with a comedy class, right?
Yeah,
was that something they taught you there of kind of how to set it up in that sense, or is that something that you kind of just like to do?
They teach you. I found myself not really following the rules they give you. I don't know. I think they're there. They're good guidelines if you have writer's block or whatever. But yeah, they do teach you that. And some people I think benefit more from that structure, and some people, I've seen it hinder some people because then they end up writing and it doesn't sound like them.
What made you decide to do a comedy class versus just getting up on stage somewhere?
I wasn't expecting to pursue it. Yeah, one of my best friends, for a few years lived like a less than 5 minute walk from me here. And then he called me up one day and was like, I'm moving back to the East Coast. And I freaked out, was like, I'm losing my best friend here. I need to make new friends. So I signed up for a comedy class just for like shits and giggles, just to meet people. My therapist and I had talked about it for a while, and I was like, I think I'd be good at it, but it seems eccentric to think I could get up and people would be interested. And it just seems like you have to have like an ego to do that. And I was like, I don't want people to, whatever. But so I was like, maybe I'll do it when I'm old and have nothing to lose. And she's like, why not now? Whatever. So anyway, he called me and told me that. I freaked out that night, signed up for a class, just trying to meet people. And then I was like, oh, I enjoy it.
That's a weird freak out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my life's crumbling. I'll sign up for a comedy class.
There was a lot happening at that point in my life. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back too.
How much do you think you were thinking about it before he moved, though, that was your decision, okay, this happened, I got to do it now? That's not such a non-spur of the moment thing. Because you would have to know that they had comedy classes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't thinking about taking a class at all before that? It just kind of went?
Well, I'd Googled classes like I think Stomping Ground is like an improv for anxiety or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it was really like a conversation with my therapist before.
Right.
And then when that happened, it was like, no, I need to make friends. Yeah.
It's definitely that. It's such a tight-knit little community.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's got its corners, but everybody seems to have people that
I
hang
didn't
out with.
realize there was such a community
Right.
either. I just thought, I don't find that many people interesting. It sounds bad.
I know what you mean.
But I'm never going to be that kind of person who goes and hangs out with people just for the sake of being social.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to enjoy the people I'm around. And so I was like, I want to meet funny people who I can banter with. And so it just seemed like a good.
Yeah. Well, part of it too is I think like once you get past college and like early 20s, that surface level conversation that people like to have, like I can't stand it. And it's like half the conversations that get started, the direction they're heading immediately. And it's like,
nowhere.
Why are we dragging this out for 10 minutes right now? Polite smile. It's, at least with the comics, with a lot of different artists, like I said, we're getting right into something real serious, real embarrassing, something. It's like, oh, great. We're not talking about the weather right now.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
it's interesting people. And I think, too, I was really missing community. And that's something I didn't know I would get with comedy, but found.
Yeah.
Like, I was a swimmer growing up and a swimmer in college. And so I've always had friends kind of handed to me. And then I get out of college, I'm working in public accounting, and it's kind of like a misery loves company type thing. So we're all really tight. We travel together and stuff.
My sister and her husband are accountants, so I'm very aware of like the environment and the stress that comes along with it.
Yeah. But then I switched over to industry, and all of a sudden I didn't have this identity given to me anymore. And with identity too, like, comes these communities, and I just felt really lost. And it's like I had friends, but they were all kind of separate. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing. What was the question? I forget.
There's no question. We were just kind of talking about, relationships, how the comedy world gave you those relationships that you felt like you were lacking.
Yeah. So,
because were you a high school athlete as well, or just collegiate?
Yeah. High school.
So you got, like you said, built-in friends because you're with these people training all the time, practicing. You're around
and you have
them.
a shared interest.
Right. Yeah. If anything else, you can talk about swimming, right?
Yeah.
And then once you graduate, now you're not part of those groups anymore. And then I'm assuming it sounds like that was roughly the same time you moved here to Texas, right?
Yeah, so I moved to Atlanta after college. I was an auditor over there, and again, though, it was just there's community.
Moving away from your hometown, though, still, right?
Yeah,
or home state, rather.
It was like 3 hours away from where I grew up. It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 5 hours.
Sorry, I've been in Texas my whole life, so when I hear another state, I assume it's 10 hours.
No, well, Texas is huge.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all the states over there, it's like there's within a 4-hour drive, you can make it to a lot of places. Mm-hmm. But
so you still had that social group in Atlanta?
Yeah, because of my job with public accounting, it's such a community because you're just working all the time with those people. Like I said, the misery loves company, and then I was traveling a lot with them, and so when you're traveling, you get off work and then you have no one to hang out with but your coworkers, right. And so we were all really close, and it was super fun. I loved that job, but it was not a sustainable lifestyle for me. But yeah, and then so I took a job, wanted work-life balance, and then I was like, wait, I don't have a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You liked the auditing? Were you auditing people or companies or both?
Yeah, auditing like financials for companies, yeah.
Was it usually in a situation where like were they trying to catch someone or something, or was it just a normal audit you do just
your
to check?
Yearly audit? Yeah.
Man, do you get in like detective mode though? Or are you like, I'm gonna find something here?
You always kind of want to, because otherwise it's boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I got to work a lot in medical malpractice, which was really, really cool. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed that job, and I loved my coworkers. I'm still really good friends with a lot of them, but it just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. I felt just like I was running myself into the ground all the time.
It's an intense, like you were talking about medical malpractice. I work in healthcare, and when all these industries, once you get in them, you're like, oh my God, it's so much worse than I ever thought. I mean, it's good overall still, but you're just thinking there are so many bad people in these places doing bad things and trying to get,
I mean, you see that on claims and stuff.
Mhm.
Like I lost a lot of trust in doctors, which sounds really bad, but
no, it's accurate.
I did, yeah.
There are really phenomenal, great ones who do
Yeah.
the things they're supposed to do. And there's more than a handful of bad ones.
Well, and sometimes it's not even, sometimes it is the doctor, right? Sometimes it's like these pressures that are set up for them, like bonuses for emergency room doctors a lot of times are based on how quickly they can get patients out.
Yep.
And so that's, you see a lot of negligence claims, especially like pneumonia, people being released too early, stuff like that. But what were we talking about?
Oh, sorry. We were talking
I
about
built up a tolerance and it's not going well.
this is I need more Adderall.
It's like the train just ran off the tracks and onto it, like off of a cliff.
That's
And
weird
I'm
though, because I feel like
my brain's empty right now.
but you were saying everything coherently. It was all making sense. I'm not looking at you going, what is happening to her right now? What the hell is going on? We're going to reschedule this.
But anyway, yeah, auditing was it was cool. I'm really grateful I got to start with that company. But yeah, I got here and it all of a sudden like my job, because swimming was like my job too, right? Like that helped pay for college. And my job didn't define me anymore. And I was like, that was a huge thing I worked through in therapy was like identity issues. I was like, I don't know. And it sounds so cliche, but I was really like, why am I living? Like, what's my purpose?
I mean, you say it's cliche, but how many people have those
Yeah.
experiences? And I think if you don't question that every now and then, that's, the kind of person who never thinks that way. You meet those people where they just seem like, for lack of a better, example, like a Stepford wife type vibe where you're just every day we do our routine, we go through our stuff. And it's like, are you okay in there? Like,
yeah. And I had friends here. It's like we would go to, dinners and, hang out and it'd be a good time. But I'd get home and I'd be like, what did I accomplish there? Like what? I just felt empty kind of. And that works for some people. It didn't work. I saw a psychic a few years ago.
Oh, God. Here we go.
I don't know.
Please go on.
I don't know if I really believe in all this, but she said something to me that resonated. And it's like these lines right here.
You went to a palm reader?
Well, it was part of it. It wasn't like,
Gotcha.
But one of them is like your work thing, and one of them's like your life. I don't know. But because these two lines are connected on both hands, she's like, your purpose in life, like your job needs to be in line with your purpose in life for you to feel like satisfied. And so I think that's too what I felt in comedy is like, obviously this isn't my day job, but I have goals to hopefully
you would
make
like it to be.
Yeah. And so I've found a lot of purpose there.
Yeah, I think that's normal. I think the people who I'm about to turn 40, right? So we're primed for a midlife crisis, right?
You're gonna get up on an open mic soon.
Oh, yeah, I need it. Well, no, but I was having this discussion with someone just talking about you got to have hobbies and things. Otherwise, you are that person when you hit whatever milestone, 30, 35, 40, whatever it is for people to freak out, where all of a sudden you're like, who am I? I have nothing. I don't even know what I am anymore. Why did I pick this career? And you start burning everything. And then it takes you burning all that to go, oh, no, I knew who I was. It was okay. And I think the more, kind of extracurriculars you have within reason to get that energy out, the more, you're going to avoid that.
Yeah. And
because especially with men, that's the thing, right? You hit an age and you're like, whatever it may be, guys just go nuts. They're like, especially, like, I think if you have an insecure man who married with kids, decent job, but, when you start questioning, at this age, I thought I'd be further or something different. Yeah. And then it seems like they go a weird route where they're like, it's probably because I married her, and then all of a sudden we start divorcing or cheating or whatever. And
or people unhappy with their kids or
right. Yeah. And it's like, this is just normal life. You just don't have your outlet for your other stuff, I totally get it. I think people feel crazy, especially if you look at it as something like age. I think every 5 years, right, people feel like they hit a milestone and they start thinking about age. Like you just entered your 30s, right?
Yeah, I'm 31.
31. Okay.
Yeah.
So at 30, you didn't think about, I'm 30.
Oh, I had a total meltdown on my 30th birthday. Like it was not a good time.
even though accomplished person, right? Yeah. No, let's be real though. Like you collegiate athlete, you have a degree, you have a career, you're an accomplished individual. There are other people who would like to have those things, but you can't see it that way. You're just like, it's not everything I wanted.
Yeah,
See what I mean?
don't know.
But now that you have comedy, you don't have to think about it like that every time.
Yeah, but then I feel like I'm not accomplishing enough each year, and I'm like, oh my time is dwindling.
But how much can you accomplish in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
When you look at these greats, I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 10 years probably.
Yeah, and I'm really jealous of these people who knew from a young age. They because you've done music, right? You were doing that, I assume, since you were a kid. Yeah. And I'm really jealous of these people who had either the intuition to know that's what they wanted to do, or they had creative families who pushed them in that way. Because I do feel kind of behind in some sense. Like, I've never done anything creative until this.
True, but I don't think you should worry about it like that, right? Because first of all, it's not a competition in that sense, right? You're just you're thinking like a swimmer. You know, you're thinking of, if I had been able to train for a few more years, maybe I could beat that person, which I think it is true in that, right? Like, if you have been athletic in a specific skill for 5 years longer than someone, and y'all each put in the same amount of time and you're both equally gifted, that person's probably got a leg up on you, right? But comedy's not that way. I mean, it's just your individual experience and how much you're going to put into it in this time right now.
Yeah, I think it freaks me out from like a long term, because long term it's like, I'll take what I can. If I could be a stand-up, I'll take it. But long term, I'd love to get into like creating shows and producing and writing, and there's just so much to learn and so many different skills.
Yeah, and
so that's where I feel kind of behind. But then I also keep reminding myself, like, maybe that's what makes me unique, is being able to have these. It's like I've been an audience member for so long and been able to see what I appreciate from that instead of being in it, which is so different. And so I'm like, maybe that'll be what makes me unique.
I think comics personally that come into it later, unless they're just already just a really inherently funny person, I think people that come in with a little bit more maturity do better.
Yeah.
Because this is just what I've seen from the outside. But I think you avoid some of the pitfalls that like younger comics get into, right? Like, the social part's fun, but it's also like, hey, don't get so hammered that you're like burning bridges. Don't sleep with everything that moves in this scene just because you're all hanging out with each other. That kind of stuff. Like, I think when you're more mature, you come in, you think more about what you want to accomplish as a comic, not necessarily all the social things, because imagine if you came into this at, 21, you weren't doing swimming, you weren't doing any of that, and you're just coming in here, and it's a party.
Yeah.
You're having a good time. Would you really have been focusing on the comedy that much, or would it be hanging out with your friends a lot?
Yeah, I mean,
who knows, right?
That's a good point. And I think, you always have that. There's always like drama and stuff. And maybe coming in, being at a more mature age, it kind of helps you navigate through like past all that. And
Well, you already know how to work, right? Being an athlete, being in a corporate world, or I don't know if y'all are corporate, but being in a professional world.
Yeah.
Like, how to work. You know how to present yourself. You know how to do these things.
Yeah.
All you have to worry about is, okay, how do I write jokes and make them funny? Whereas everyone else has to worry about, how do I speak to a club owner or a booker? How do I do this stuff?
Yeah.
So I think it gives you a leg up.
Yeah, I think it's just, we all have different backgrounds, and it's just how do you utilize that background to push you further, like to make you stand out. And so maybe that's it.
What it makes me think of? I know how to ride a motorcycle, and I rode them for like when I was a kid. We rode dirt bikes, but I never got my license until I was in my 30s. And I was like, I'm going to finally get a motorcycle license and buy just like a regular motorcycle, And the license, which by the way, I don't know how it is in South Carolina, but in Texas, to get a motorcycle license, 2 days. That's all you need.
Oh, okay.
That's it. You go to a 2-day course in a parking lot. Like, I went in a parking lot of a mall that was closing, and they make you just like ride around cones and do these things. And after 2 days, you can go buy the fastest motorcycle you want and take it on any highway around here. You're good to go, which seems insane, right? And but what made me remember that moment when you were talking is I'd ridden motorcycles my whole life growing up. So I was just thinking, okay, there's probably something I can learn here, because I was just, I learned from my dad, and we're all just kind of self-taught, I guess. I've never had like real instruction, because some of these people, this is the first time they've ever touched a motorcycle is this class.
Ooh.
2 days. And then they're good. And so you're watching people.
Scary.
It's super scary.
Yeah.
And you're watching these people learn how to ride a motorcycle for the first time, like learn how to shift gears, pull in the clutch, where are the brakes, where's the gas, all these things. And then the instructor, he's one of those like older guys. He's like, I've ridden 400,000 miles on a motorcycle. He really knows his stuff, and he's teaching you
It's
some
like
more.
how many reps you have as a comic.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's giving me like there's some information that I obviously missed. And he's giving me, I'm like, oh, that's good to know. That's probably why I crashed that one time, like as a kid, this happened. And, but then when we actually got out there on the motorcycles and you see people just, bikes are falling over, they're stalling, they're braking so hard that they're almost throwing themselves off of it. And you're just going, holy shit. Like my biggest fear was, I'm going to get on the street, which I've never really ridden motorcycles on the street before. So I need to like watch out for these cars around me, make sure I don't get hit by something. And they're doing all of that while also trying to go, okay, what was first gear again? Where's the brake? And I was just thinking, how do you even comfortably get on a motorcycle where one of these cars could just kill you instantly and you really don't even know how to ride it yet?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where you are with comedy. It's like those other people, they're still figuring out all those other little details just to even, survive day to day. And, you at least got that out of the way.
Yeah. And the worst I can do is embarrass myself.
Yeah. Which,
yeah.
You'll be fine. That's going to happen, right?
That reminds me, my grandpa, when I was growing up, he went through like a past midlife, whatever you call the next kind of crisis.
Okay. How old do you think he was?
I want to say I was in elementary school. So.
This is more for my education. Like from here on out, anything I do, people are going to be going, is this his... Any major purchase?
Yeah, I'd say he was probably around 60.
Okay.
And he bought a motorcycle, got the license. It didn't even make it out the driveway. He toppled it over onto himself. Had trouble getting out from under it, and then it just sat in the garage the rest of the time.
Oh my God! So that was his first time. Was 60 years old roughly? Getting a motor. Yeah. God, that's insane. That scares me. Is that I'm thinking if you haven't done it.
Yeah, and he's not well in the head ever. It wasn't just his age. He's nuts. Yeah.
Wow. So, like I said, for the rest of my life, if I make a purchase, that's what people are going to be wondering. Is this his 60-year-old motorcycle moment?
You're doing it early though, so people, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I really do want though is I really want a Porsche. But
oh, that's a good one.
But that's a midlife, and I was like, but it's really
why do you want it?
I love driving.
Okay.
If I can take a road trip over flying, I don't hate flying. I just like to drive.
Yeah, I feel that.
My first, I learned how to drive stick whenever I was learning to drive. The first car I drove in was what I learned in was a Ford pickup. It was like a 4-door. It had the long bed, so it's like this giant truck, and it was a standard. And that was my mom's truck. And she's like, well, this is what you're going to learn in.
Okay.
And so I think something about learning stick shift, it makes driving more fun.
I say, yeah, I know. I've never driven stick shift.
You should learn. I mean, if you're so anyway, in the worst car that I ever owned was I bought this 1994 Geo Metro. Do you know what those are?
No.
It's a shitty little hatchback.
It sounds like a cool name though.
Oh, it's not cool at all. It is so lame. But it was a standard. And it was like this bare bones cheap vehicle. I bought it for $900.
Oh,
this is the kind of car we're talking about.
Dang, those were the days.
And and then I drove it for years, and I sold it for $900. So it's like I had this car for free, and it was not a fancy car, as you can see.
Oh, yeah, that's not what I was. It sounded cool.
If I pulled
cool.
if I pulled up on a date and I was like, "Hey, Liz, I'm super excited to take you out," and I'm like, "Let me get the door," and you see that, you're like, "Fuck, here we go."
That makes
me better have personality.
That makes me think of someone in the 80s, classic dad going to work.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
So I grew up in a small town and had to commute. So when I graduated high school and had an apartment stuff, I was like, I'm gonna get this car. It'll save me a ton of money. It got 50 miles to the gallon. It was just a saving money type decision.
Yeah.
But it was like driving a go-kart. It was fun. I don't know how to describe it. It was just the most fun I'd ever had driving a car in this ugly, shitty car. And I don't really care about the having a fancy car, but something about a Porsche just seems like if you love driving, that is like a driver's car.
It just runs smooth or what?
Yeah, and for a car that's like a fast, agile car, they're supposed to be the most reliable of that.
Okay.
Like a Ferrari or something's going to break down.
Anything.
Yeah. Basically, the shinier and cooler one of these cars is like a Ferrari, Lamborghini, and they're going to break down a lot. It costs a lot of money to maintain them. There's people who just like a Porsche you can just daily drive.
Okay.
It's like a regular car, There's people who've put 1 million miles on them.
So you want it for your own experience, not...
Yeah, I could give a shit what you...
Okay,
what I want is I want to be able to drive fast, not reasonably fast. Like if you're doing, 80 miles an hour on a highway on a road trip, I don't want it to feel like you're going 80. I want it to be like smooth. Like
you want to be surprised when the cop pulls you over.
and just, like for instance, once a year I'll go up to Wichita Falls. They do a bicycle ride up there. That's just like an event that you do. And it would be nice to just like road trip in a car that's just quiet when it's fast and it's not like a loud, I don't know how to describe that, but
yeah.
then,
I know what you mean.
Like, did you ever have a car where you just went for a drive for no reason? You're just like, I just want to go for a drive.
That was my sanity in high school. Like I would, just to escape. Like if something was going on, I'd go for like an hour. Well,
because South Carolina, you have hills and mountains, right? You probably got great roads up there that you can go drive.
Well, and my trip to swim practice each day was like half an hour. And so I just could drive that and totally zone out and not think about it. And I'd just go blast music. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's what I still drive, but it was like one of the old ones, like a good one. And like going through like farmlands too with that. Phenomenal.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
something about the drive by yourself, it's like sometimes you don't even put music on. You're just driving,
Yeah.
So
I love just like windows down blasting. And I never listen to country music either, but something about country music when you do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. What do you think it is about the country music? Well, what kind of country music are we talking about? Do you like the pop sing-along country music?
No, I don't listen to any of the new stuff. I'll do like the 90s, like early 2000s, like some Tim McGraw, just stuff like that. Yeah,
that's what I think about when I think about getting that really expensive car like that. But the problem is you've got all these people who want it for a status symbol. So the prices on them are insane.
But also, you might be judged a little bit for that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I know who I am. It's fine.
Yeah.
And if you are judging me, it's like, and who am I to say, like, there's probably a little bit of that in there, right? I mean, it's probably a little bit in me going,
well,
like,
that's part of why
nice
I didn't
car.
want to, I was like, I don't want people to think I'm some, like, egotistical,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, who doesn't want, something nice, right? Like, like we live in a nice, modest home. We have modest things, Like I drive a Toyota Tacoma right now. I'm not worried about.
That's a good one. That's a solid.
It's a solid truck, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's like, you see that Toyota Tacoma over there? Like that guy must be doing well.
Yeah, but it's also not one of those trucks where people are like, does he have pride issues?
Yeah.
Is he okay?
It's not like the Geo Metro either, where people are just like, is he all right? Does he need help?
Is he financially stable?
Yeah, I'm going through that right now. We're thinking about having a second kid, and if we do, the truck that I have is a little small for like 2 car seats and stuff, And so I was like, I could get a bigger truck. But the moment I think about getting a bigger truck, I'm like, God damn it. Then I'm lumped in with these big truck guys.
Yeah.
And I can't stand that. And we live here in Dallas. Like, I like to be able to parallel park easy, get to park, move around. I don't want this big vehicle.
Like the things that we'll do because we're afraid of being judged for it, even though it's like and a lot of people will get a Porsche because they want to look cool, and then some people are afraid to get one because they're afraid of looking like an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've experienced that too, and it's I mean, like with comedy.
Well, what would you say is your equivalent, like of a purchase, like an object, a material possession that you are going to have or you really want?
My boobs.
Oh, okay. Already have them? Is that I'm guessing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, like.
Well, what age were you?
I got them. It was a little over 3 years ago, so I think I was 28 when I got them. But it's something I'd always wanted for myself, but I avoided. Sorry, I don't care. I'm not. I love talking about this stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know if it's weird.
No, it's not weird.
But yeah, it's like I was a swimmer, and I also like. Yeah, I just always wanted them. And I put it off for so long because I was afraid of other people's, like, I had my college boyfriend would, he'd get so mad when I talked because he's like, you need to like love, and, I know it was coming from like a positive, he was trying to be positive, but I was like, no, I want this for me. It's not for you or anyone else. Like, I want it for me. And then flip side, first guy I dated out of college was like, oh, you need them. And I'm like, all right, well, screw you. Like, no, I'm good in my own body. And so it's like, if it hadn't been for all of these like people's opinions, I probably would have gotten them a lot earlier. And it's been really life-changing for me in a lot of ways. And just, I don't think I realized.
You mean in terms of like your own personal confidence, or what do you mean life-changing?
Yeah, like it's just nice to be able, when you look in the mirror, and I feel like everyone's got that one thing you look in the mirror every day and you're just like, and to have that go away is just like, I can just walk out the door and not have to think about how can I, like, what bra do I have to wear so that my clothes hang correctly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just been and it's like I wear a lot of baggy stuff. It's not like I got them to, but it's just convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When do you think was the first time you even thought about that?
About getting them?
Thought that it was even an issue? You like
when I was developing.
So like as a teenager, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess what I was asking is like, when did you even become aware of like boob size being an issue for you?
I think I was really self-conscious about it. So I started swimming like year-round when I was 13. But like for the year or two before that, in middle school, I was really self-conscious about it. I'm like, when am I going to come in? Whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you get to where you're just like half naked in front of a lot of people for hours and hours each day. And you just get to where I wasn't self-conscious of them, but I didn't like them. And so I always I remember being in middle school being like, yeah, I'm going to get a boob job when I'm older. And so it was always, what was the question?
Just curious about when you even first thought that when you first even realized you didn't like that aspect of your body.
Oh, yeah. Just middle school.
And swimming and getting in swimsuits all the time.
Yeah. I think getting in swimsuits is what made me like accept it and not feel self-conscious about it. Mm-hmm. Like I never got them because I felt self-conscious. I never felt like womanly. I guess I felt like I was missing this like integral part of womanhood. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember like being in the, middle school, like gym locker room, and it's your first time like having to change in front of people and stuff. And I think that's like a traumatizing time for everyone. I don't know why we do that to people.
Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah. And it, so I was really self-conscious and I dressed really, I am like a sporty person, but I just took on this tomboy kind of look because I wanted to wear baggy clothes. I didn't know how to, like, women's clothes aren't made for flat chests. It's like I'd have to wear padded bras just so that things would hang correctly on me.
I got you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you've had them how long now?
A little over 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Is it everything you'd hoped?
Yeah, it's great. And it's not for everyone. I've had friends who have gotten them and had them taken out. But that's one of the things when I moved to Dallas, people are like, oh, there's so much like money in plastic surgery, you're going to hate it. And it's like, part of that's true.
Yeah,
but part of it is like, it's so normalized here that it wasn't, I was like, I no longer feel judged for getting these.
Yeah. Have you heard our saying, like, they have like keep Austin weird?
Yeah.
A bunch of people say keep Dallas plastic.
Yeah.
I'd heard that like years and years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess we are. Because when you grow up around here, you don't think anything of it,
Yeah.
And then when you go to other places and you hear people the way they talk about us, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But no, I mean,
so that was my thing that I put off for a long time, just because I don't want people to be like, oh, she cares too much about this, or she's doing it like, that's going
to be the first thing is like, oh, she's doing it for attention or something.
Well, and the huge stigma is like you're doing it to impress men or whatever.
Right.
Like, yeah.
But I mean, I think an average person, I mean, even still, it's like the things you do. It's like I definitely want to still impress my wife. I don't want her to look at me with my shirt off and be like,
I've stopped caring, kind of.
I think there's a healthy amount of caring. Like, because I would hope she would do the same for me. Like, I want to always find each other attractive, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to let yourself go. So no, I get that. But that definitely is like the car,
Yeah,
it's like
I get stopped caring, but I've stopped obsessing.
Which is good, because that's not healthy, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's like you want and it's like I fixed my biggest problem, so maybe that's why I stopped obsessing. But
oh my gosh, yeah, I think I remember you talking about you were talking about baggy clothes, and in that short interview you did with Big Laughs, you were talking about wearing baggy clothes in the comedy scene because it can, like, again, There's a lot of interesting people in the comedy world who can say a lot of really weird, interesting things when they get too comfortable with you. And you were saying you were worried about them doing that with your body too. And not in like a really like, not like it was real toxic and negative, all like they're just coming to do it. But it just, what was the example you gave on there?
Sometimes it does.
You gave an example where someone was like, oh, did you get hard or something like that?
Yeah, there was, and I feel, because I work with him a lot now, and he's never apologized for it, but I can tell, like, he knows not to do that now. But yeah, it was just at, you know, an open mic, which usually they don't have people coming, but they did this time. They had someone coming on and introducing everyone. And I get off stage and he just looks to a guy in the front row and is like, did you get a boner? Because I would have.
Okay.
And I'm like, I didn't even do it was a clean set. Like, what?
Yeah, open mics are wild, right?
Yeah. And
well, because
like,
you're in that environment where people are going for it, trying to get any laugh they can get. So it can get a little weird pretty fast.
But then it's like I do a joke about my boob job. And so it's like I do feel very vulnerable if I'm like, I know people are trying to look at them if I'm sitting there, like I'm giving them permission basically if I'm talking about it. And
yeah. That would be hard if you instantly if you say something like that, people's eyes are just going to drop just a little, right?
And that's part of the joke. I acknowledge that. But yeah, it's like I got called a whore on stage a few months ago, and
really? So an audience member, I'm assuming, or was this a
yelled it out so loud. It was like one of those moments when I was trying to create tension with silence, right? And he just breaks it by doing that. And he'd been talking a lot already, and so I had already addressed him. And in my head, I was like, if he talks again, I'm going to ignore him, see if he shuts up. And in my defense, he did. But he said that I didn't hear it because sometimes, like, you're on stage, the way the speakers are, it's like it's muffled, but the audience can hear it. And so this is on the main stage at Dallas Comedy Club, who handles situations like those phenomenally. So shout out to them. They always have their comics' backs. But yeah, it's like probably not even halfway through, like 3 or 4 minutes into it, a 10-minute set, he yells that out, and then I just start bombing. And I didn't know what he said, so I'm just like, I should be able to get them back, but I'm not. Like, and it's because he said that and I didn't address it. And so I get off stage. I just thought I had a normal bomb. I'm like, all right, whatever, it's cool. And I walk out, and Rosie, the owner, and like three or four other people are with her, and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, did I bomb that bad? They're worried about my mental health. Like,
right.
And they're like, you got called a whore. I'm like, who got called a whore? They're like, yeah. I'm like, what? And so stuff like that, like I've got a joke about that now. There's been all kinds of stuff. So
man, the heckler. If you had the confidence of a heckler, right?
Yeah, and I was so upset because I'm like, if I had heard him, I'm like, it's a missed opportunity.
You would have been ready to go.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird world. You know, I think about well, you were talking about like dressing and how that can be perceived, you know, by comics or audience members or whatever. And one of my favorites, who I think did that really well, was Natasha Leggero. You familiar with her? I'll send you some of her stuff. She's been doing it for a while, but she would go on stage wearing. She's been doing it for a while, but she would wear. I don't even know how you describe it. Like when you say dress, everybody's got like a different. It was like. Let me see if I can just find a picture. Maybe you can have better words for it. But she would wear like.
Natasha Leggero. She sounds familiar.
You know her. You know her. You just need to see her face. But she kind of really leaned into like a feminine look, but it was a very like classy kind of feminine look.
Yeah, and it's like I've had people.
She's wearing like gloves and things on stage. It was real. Yeah.
I've had people be like, "Oh, don't change how you dress," but it's like genuinely that's just how I feel most comfortable on stage. I think whether people were yelling those things or not.
Not the best picture, but she would do stuff like that.
Oh, her, yeah.
She's phenomenal. But she had this. Like she'd come out very well. Like it was almost like she was going to an event the way she dressed.
Oh,
it wasn't like, you know, so it was very feminine, but it was never like cleavage or like legs or anything like that. You know, it was interesting. But you could tell it caught audience members off guard for a moment.
Yeah.
Because this is very different than the average comic coming up on stage.
Yeah.
But then her character was a very, she talked a lot like she was better than everyone and everything in her comedy routines. So it was
So
hilarious.
it went along with
it was
it.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
I think a lot of, and this goes into, it's not just that I just dress down for that, but I think a lot of comics, it's like if you come out male or female and you're too dressed up, people are like, they're trying too hard. They're not going to be funny.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because like in the old days, they would wear suits. And now when you see, there's like a really well-known comic, I'm blanking on his name, but he still wears like suit. And he's like a very famous comic. And even now when you see it, you're like, why is he still holding on to that suit? What's going on there?
John Mulaney?
No, he's one of them. He still pulls off.
Yeah,
no, this is like
this
is a, God, I wish I remember his name. I'm not going to try to describe him.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, he comes out in a suit and he still, he looks like that comic from 15, 20 years ago even. And it's weird how now all of a sudden dressing nicely takes you out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
it's first impressions, right, with audience. I don't know what, there's like some statistic, but it's like you only have a few seconds for them to get their initial opinion of you. And then if it's not good, you're just spending your whole set trying to win them back after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The psychology of the audience in the comic is something I really like to watch now.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know a lot of the people where you're looking around the room. On your show, on your Girls Night Out show, didn't you have Linda Stogner on that show?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was the one I went to. I'm almost positive it was at that show. That was the first time in a long time I'd watched Linda where 95% of the crowd had never seen her before.
Oh, yeah.
Usually, because she's like a staple around here, so usually some of the crowd has watched her.
Yeah.
And I was reminded, I was like, oh my God, I forgot what it was like when people have no idea about Linda.
Yeah.
And they get real freaked out real quick because she is just intense and different.
Well, also, you're not used to someone of her age like going onto the stage. And so you're like, you see kind of confusion taking place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she had that. That's right. It's coming back to me. Y'all had a weird heckler at that show. There was a guy, I don't know if you got to hear him, but when Linda was up there was a guy and he was probably like 60s or something, and he was from somewhere else. Him and his secretary took a little getaway to Dallas, which seemed a little sketchy. And they were talking a bunch of shit.
Yeah,
and it
very
was
sketchy.
It was getting like real filthy, and Linda's just like,
Linda's
yeah, okay,
so clean.
yeah. But you got to see the years of professionalism that she has to get through all that.
She is, and that's what I love because she's one of those people like you go out and because of her age. Like, people are judging her instantly, right?
Yeah.
And she immediately proves them wrong. Every time the audience is always taken so off guard. And so I love watching that every time I see her go up.
Yeah, which is weird because, I don't know how it was for you growing up, but when I was growing up, it's like the older people around you were usually the funny people.
Yeah.
Right? You always had like a funny aunt or uncle or grandparent or somebody who just cut the shit all the time. Because it's just you've had a whole lifetime to learn what's funny and what's not. But I think you get it more at DCC because that's a younger crowd there in general.
Yeah, it is. And I think too, a lot of those older comics, they're more established now, like the ones you're talking about. So
yeah, real quick while we're talking about Girls Night Out, I told you I was going to write an article about like theme.
Oh yeah,
about
and
theme
I never
shows.
got back to you.
I never wrote it because every time I sat down to write it. It felt like I was just being this whiny, complainy person.
Why?
Well, because the theme of it, for me, what I was trying to get it out was I find it very interesting that theme shows exist anyway. And what I mean by theme, right? So like you have Girls Night Out.
Right.
Obviously, men and women can watch, but the performers, all ladies, right?
Yeah.
And then, you have like Sri Raj has the really good, the Brown Out show.
Yeah.
So we're having all, what do you even say? You can't just say brown. It's brown comics, right?
Yeah.
From whatever your race is, if you got a little bit of brown, he puts you on the show.
Yeah.
And then you have, I'd reached out to some people who had like...
Peyton's Black Sugar.
Yeah, Peyton. And then there's like there's always like a LGBTQ...
Oh, yeah.
Some kind of show around that.
I think Queer Factor.
Yes, that was the person I reached out to, yeah. And it was just hard because you're thinking, why? What, like funny's funny. Why do we need these shows? And it's hard to write that without it sounding like, hey, lady, why are you putting this show on with all these girls? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard. But really, it was more curiosity of, like, one, why does a comic want to be on a themed show, right? Like, one, why do you feel like you have to put it on? And what I mean is, again, when you say it that way, it's like, what makes you think you have to put this on? Just ladies, huh? And that's not what I mean. It was more of like, why does this even need to exist? Like, is it the crowds, or is it just simply you're overthinking it and it's fun? And that's kind of what I got from, what was it, the Queer Factor, that show? When I reached out to, I can't even remember the name now, whoever hosts that. But
it's not Stefan.
I think so. That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were just like, oh yeah, a lot of our performers just, he said it in a way I think that was best. He was like, a lot of our performers are performing material that just resonates with a gay audience or whatever so much better. And it's not that these performers only want to perform here under this kind of environment. It's just that this might be the best opportunity for that specific material to really shine. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a really good way to do it. And then, of course, they talked about with that community, they felt like some clubs aren't safe spaces for them to perform. I don't know. I haven't been to a club yet where I feel like a person is being attacked for any one thing yet. But I don't know. That's my experience, right? So there's so many more shows at these clubs that I haven't gone to than ones that I have gone to. But again, that's why it was hard to kind of get in that article, because it sounded like just really judgy and, I didn't want to do it. But
no,
I mean, what are your
I
thoughts on hosting a show like Girls Night Out?
Well, one, I think you should do the article. I think that's maybe one of the places where we're worried about outside judgment. But I would love to, because I think everyone has their own reasons for that, and it's not that you're giving them an opportunity to speak to that. For me, I started Girls Night Out because, when I was first starting out and I was getting booked on these shows, I started noticing I was the only female on these lineups. And so it felt like I was just given this obligatory female slot. And I started noticing that a lot. I would notice there would be all male lineups all the time, and no one would blink an eye. But I never saw all female lineups. And so I wanted to do that and see if it would be successful. And there's a comic I'm really good friends with. When I told him, I was pitching this show to DCC, he was like, that's dumb. That's not going to work. He didn't say it that way, but you could tell that's, he was like, And so I just wanted to show it's like, why can't we have all female lineups and it be successful? One. I guess that's the main reason I started it. But then, the feedback that I've gotten since then, I feel like it's done some things that I wasn't anticipating. Like, there was a review that someone left on the DCC website, or reviews, whatever, that said, it was a great show, whatever, and they felt really safe and not awkward, and just it was a good place to hang out as a woman. I had someone introduce me on stage. I don't have many credits at this point in my career yet. And they were like, this woman's done a great job of creating safe spaces for females in comedy. And I was like, is that what this show is doing? Because I never thought of it that way, but it's one of those things you hear that and all of a sudden you're really proud that that's happening, or people are viewing it that way. And so I think it's just, you talk about safe spaces. I think as a woman, there are not many, but there's one club in particular I can think of. It's like I don't want to go there. And so, and I've seen other all female shows be like no boys allowed or whatever, but and I get that's helping create a safe space for the audience as well.
When they say no boys allowed, they mean the audience also?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's I love seeing the male turnout at the Girls Night Out shows. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
To see that kind of support of guys who just want to come out and watch female-driven comedy.
Maybe that's where some of my hang up was with those types of shows initially, is that you do see the no men allowed in the audience, right? And you're like, well, what does that really accomplish? If your goal with a comedy show is just to be funny, right?
Yeah.
And it's if you're excluding anyone from seeing that you're funny, that's not great anyway, right? Because and to your credit, your show never felt like we're going to show them, girls. Like, it wasn't like that. It was just a comedy show that just has a female lineup.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like some of the other ones get more aggressive with it of like,
Yeah. And not to harp on like the safeness of it, but it's like when you go there and it's not even the safeness, I think, but it's like if you go and it's mostly like, men, or for like these shows that are, like the Brownout or Peyton's Black Sugar. It's like if you're constantly going and you feel like you're kind of the odd man out, it's a cool situation to go to a place where you feel like you're surrounded by people like you and just relax and be able to relate to, like you were saying about Queer Factor, just relate to the material being talked about.
That was the part that I could really, I think that's where it cracked in when Stefan was saying something similar. He wrote it. I wasn't talking to him. He just messaged me and saying something similar of just, like you're kind of your funniest when you're around people with, like we were talking
you
about.
You just feel more relaxed
when we were talking about how
home.
like with some of your coworkers in the past, you didn't feel like you're really being yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same thing of like, it's your group, it's your people, you can crack jokes. I was like, oh, okay, that maybe is the perfect way to describe all of these shows.
You just feel more relaxed when you're around people you feel like are like you. And when you're relaxed, you laugh more, you have a better time. You feel at home, and it's a way to kind of highlight that kind of comedy.
How long's that show been running now, your show?
The first one was in November of 23. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you had a full year.
Yeah,
and
it's every
are you
other
renewed?
month. I am renewed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to move tickets to get renewed, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. I've never had to have that conversation, so I don't know.
Well, the one I went to, you were full, weren't you?
It wasn't sold out, but it was a pretty full room. Yeah,
it looked full. It was a good audience. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what I like about it too. Is it's been such supportive crowds. It's never like you go up and it's a stale crowd. They're always just so like they're into it.
You had a comic on that lineup. I'm not sure if she wants people knowing she's doing comedy. Do you know who I'm talking about? She performs comedy, but like her socials and stuff. Because I looked her up, and I mean, she's on a poster. I guess it doesn't matter. Do you remember the lineup on the Linda Stogner show? You, Linda?
Yeah, it was me, Linda, Peyton, Alexis, and Danny.
Danny. Who's Danny?
Danny B.
Oh, no, I know Danny B. No, there was one more on that show. Was it like a Laura or Lauren or something?
No, there was. Was there?
I'm telling you, I remember this person had like, I wish. Anyway,
I'm gonna look it up.
But it was somebody I'd never seen before, and I was wondering like,
Alexis Waters?
No, because wasn't she a reality show person?
Yeah.
No, I remembered her. It's not her.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah. Find the flyer for me, because I looked it up and I asked around about this person, and they made it seem like they do comedy for fun, but they're not really trying to let people do it. And I was like, I wonder if that's true or not. And then I found their social, and it was very non-comedy.
You're thinking of a different show. That's the lineup from that show.
Maybe I am then. Maybe I'm getting it messed up with somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, everybody on that show was great. I've had Peyton on here.
I mean,
She's
I
awesome.
do like, so when I started, I was worried about like, corporate stuff. And so, yeah, you find people who, they got to make sure they keep their day jobs too.
I know. Even with this, it's like I don't really talk about my day job on here ever. And the people that I work with, I don't tell them about this ever. It's like, if you do find out, great, but we're going to keep it all nice and separate.
Yeah, it's been, I feel like everyone kind of knows about it now, and I'm like, yeah.
Nah, but you can still pretend it's like,
I feel like none of my stuff is that, like, I don't do raunchy stuff. Like, I talk about stuff that's maybe I wouldn't talk about in the office.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was controversial,
tastefully.
You just used the N-word a lot more than I thought you would, right? That's pretty wild, but no, kidding. No, I think you had nothing that would get you fired, but you never know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think a lot about what am I going to be saying on these recordings that 30 years from now is going to be, oh, that's just old Grandpa Travis. It was a different time.
Yeah. I don't think I'm that edgy. I do think I talk about things, again, that aren't safe for work necessarily, but it's done tastefully. It's done, like I said, in what I hope is a therapeutic way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it comes across that way. Yeah. I've never heard you say anything where I'm like, oh my God, she's going to get fired.
Yeah.
But still, also, you would hope that people are mature enough now to know that what is being said in a comedy club is very different. Like, you're not saying that at your workplace. So, can we compartmentalize?
But it's
here?
like whenever coworkers come, I'm like, they're going to know about my boobs. That's fine.
Yeah. What is that like for you?
They're going to know why I took that time off.
Do you feel like that's a conversation that you have to have with, like, when you're dating someone? Do you feel like, or is
about the boobs?
Yeah. I've always been curious when people get, some kind of plastic surgery that at some point is going to be, maybe not obvious. I don't want to say that. That sounds like you got a horrible boob job.
But I mean, yeah, you can tell.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, do you feel like that's a conversation you have with people, or are they always just like, oh, okay, that's what she has, no big, like, do they bring it up to you, or?
I don't know how to answer that because I haven't dated a lot since since way before I even got there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have, but.
Well, do you feel like you'll have to say that to someone, or it's just going to be like, whatever?
In Dallas. If we were outside of Dallas, maybe.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, as a guy, I wouldn't care. It would be like, if I noticed for some reason, I would go, oh, and that would be it.
I think what guys care most about is just, do you feel confident in yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a country singer named Margot Price. If you like country music, you should check her out. She's really, really good. She's more modern, but she's not, like, she's legitimate country music.
Okay.
But she had like a bump on her nose for her whole life, but there's just this confidence about her. She's a very attractive woman. You never even thought about, like, I'm sure some people do, but she recently had that removed, and that was like a controversy, because part of me was like, but Margot, you're so, I know, but my wife was like, at the same time that I'm bitching about that, it's like I had a mole right here that I got taken off. She's like, well, what about that mole you took off? And I'm like, well, listen here, like, don't bring me into this. Like,
yeah, it's so easy to judge, and that's what we were talking about earlier. It's just being afraid to do things that genuinely make you happy.
Yeah.
Because people are going to think you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, but you're right. The confidence thing was there. It's like, I never thought people were just staring at this mole or anything. But it's like, I would catch it in the mirror or something. I'd be like, I could just cut that off, Yeah. And then, so her with like that bump on her nose, you're thinking, man, it almost makes you hot because you have the confidence to not care about that. And then you find out she's caring about it, and you're like, so you're just like all of us? It was all a lie?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not for the whole plastic surgery, especially with fillers and stuff. It's gotten way out of hand. Mm-hmm. But, I think if you've got one or two, if you got that one thing that's just bothered you your whole life, every day you look in the mirror and you have the means to take care of it, just do it, But I don't like everyone who's perfecting every single tiny.
No, what I get afraid of now is, like, aging reasonably, naturally, you look hotter. You just look hotter.
Yeah. You can tell when.
Yes, you can. It's like, I don't want to drop any celebrity names on here. That'd be rude. But, but there's these people who've just had all this work done. And you're like, man, you would have been hot without that, though.
Yeah.
Like, you would have aged, but you're still you. You're still hot,
Yeah.
But I get it. You're in your head.
Moderation is key.
When I can't imagine what it's like, though, you talked a little bit about, like, noticing, like, locker rooms, swimsuits, that stuff. Now imagine you're in Hollywood where they're just judging you 100%. Male, female, like, your looks matter so much.
Well, and I did, before I started comedy, I felt so much pressure to start getting, like, filler and just and I get, like, a little bit of Botox for my 11s, but not my full forehead.
I hate that I know what 11s are, but it's because my wife talks about, like, Botox and things like that.
Yeah, but that's, like, Botox there, that's all I've had done. And but I think had I not started comedy, I would have gotten a lot more done by this point.
Really?
Yeah, just because of the pressures. And then I got into comedy with people who either don't care about that stuff. A lot of people are, like, they're really pursuing this, and so money is kind of on the back burner for them, so they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And, I just feel so much more comfortable with my flaws in comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the comedy lane, it's like, I wonder what Joan Rivers would look like had she aged just normally. Maybe like a little bit of here and there, but it's like, I wonder, because when you see her when she's younger, you're like, well, that's not an unattractive person. She's a good looking person, But you just wonder. She
Yeah.
had so much done.
Yeah.
And she went through the eras where it wasn't good yet. It's not like the surgeons now.
I know. But yeah, so I'm really grateful to comedy for that too. I think it's made me a lot more confident, even in my physical appearance.
Were you concerned when you got your boob job that you would then want to get more plastic surgery?
Yeah, I was really concerned.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a slippery slope. Like you fix one thing and then there's the next thing, right, that you start eyeing. And so that did come into play a little bit, but I've just gotten out of that now. And I'm like, especially I've kind of given up on trying to like date, impress people, whatever. And especially with comedy, like people are there for your personality, not your looks. And so I've stopped not caring, but again, like obsessing over stuff. Yeah.
That is one of the things I love about comedy is looks might matter for a split second. But it really is just, are you funny or are you not funny, right? Because you can have just a really attractive person where you think, like, that's going to be distracting.
Yeah.
And then it can go the other way where you can have a very unattractive person. And you think, but once they get the laugh, once you start realizing, like, they are funny, all that, you just forget about it,
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's changed, and it's changed how I feel like I'm valued, and, you get told like, oh, you're so pretty, whatever. And then you get into comedy and that's not where your value is. So why do I care so much? Yeah.
Yeah. I heard we have a 4-year-old, he's about to be 5. And so I'm always in.
That's a fun age, but
you're just always thinking like, how do you not screw this kid up? Because
everyone's going to. You just have to start the therapy fund early.
No, I don't want to do that. Well, but you were talking about people saying you're funny versus you're pretty.
Yeah.
It's like it was stuff like that where we were talking about. Like if we had a girl before we knew we were going to have a boy, we're trying for another, you try not to always go like, oh, you're so beautiful or, oh, you're so handsome.
Yeah.
Not making that the lead qualifier.
You want them to feel confident, but not put like they need that kind of validation.
Right. Yeah. Now we're trying to use more like, oh, you're strong, you're tough, you're smart.
Yeah.
Those types of things. But who knows? Every generation thinks, oh, we got parenting figured out.
I know. That's why I say everyone's going to mess up. Just with the college fund, start a therapy fund so that they're not like, why am I paying all these therapy bills because of you?
Why? How much therapy have you gotten at this point?
So much.
How many years?
I first went to a therapist when I was 12.
12? Do you feel like you'll ever stop going to therapy? Or is it just a part of you now?
So my therapist now, and she's, I think, the best therapist I've had in my whole life, and I've had a lot of therapists. But when I first started seeing her, she's like, just like, the goal here is for you to eventually fire me. And she stopped saying that because she knows, like, she's just a big part of my support system. Again, just didn't grow up with like the best kind of household. And so I do think it's a little different for me, and that that's a huge part of my support system that is, I think I'm always just going to need there. And it is kind of a crutch, but
therapy really, I know people need it, but man, the thought of, I think the hurdle I can never get over with therapy is, what makes that person qualified?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're still just a person. You still just have problems. And I think, again, working around doctors, like in the medical field, it's like, when you were young and you met a doctor, you're like, that's a doctor. That's an intelligent person. They went to medical school.
Like you fully, anything they say is true.
Yeah. And then you're like, there are so many people where you wonder, how did they get through medical school? How?
Yeah.
And so that when the curtain gets pulled out, and so it's hard not to think about, therapists that way for me, where like, how do you even know you find a good one? When you're deciding on a therapist, what are the boxes you look for that say, this is going to be a good fit for me?
You have to have aligned values. And so her and I are aligned on like politically, religious, like all that. But I think she's like a few years older than me, and just so she kind of gets like my age and all the, I don't know. I don't know.
It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I think about that a lot.
I mean, I can tell she's a good person. I never feel judged ever. And yeah, I think it took time for me to realize how good I think she is too, because it's like you're getting to know them as well, even if they're not sharing like personal things about them to you so much as you are to them. It's like you're hearing their reaction to it. And so it's like, I also know her so well now that, yeah, of course she's human. If she says something, I just take it with a grain of salt. It's like, you know, she's not perfect, but she's damn good.
Do you ever wonder if you should have a therapist that doesn't align with a lot of your views? You know, do you wonder if sometimes it would be good to have that different perspective maybe?
Maybe.
And I don't know. I'm just curious.
Because like one of the things I can tell, it's like when her and I are too aligned on something, and I can tell like maybe I need different perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm pretty good at pointing that out. But I do like, so I'm agnostic. I've seen therapists who are like religious, Christian, whatever, and those yeah,
that's tough. I mean, even just like that's part of growing up too, is where it's so easy to like I have people that are family members who listen to this show sometimes. So it's like even just saying this, they're going to be like, but I don't know. I hate all the labels. If I was closest to anything, it would be agnostic, right?
Yeah.
But I'm happy knowing that I'm very ignorant about the world, right? Because one of my big hobbies is astronomy. You know?
That's cool. I didn't know that about
I
you,
love anything. Honestly, I'm thinking about going back to school just for math. I can't decide if I want to go back for math or for physics because I feel like I've seen enough. You know, if you watch anything about the universe or planets or whatever, black holes, it's told to you in layman's terms, right?
Yeah.
I don't have this education where I can understand that. You know, it's like I took the required stuff from my degree, which is like college algebra. It's like, you know, and I was too immature to not enough work ethic back then to appreciate the value of science, right?
It's crazy. Like we're so young at that age and we're setting ourselves up for the trajectory of the rest of it. It's wild.
And so
there's no other way to do it, but
it's like, what's that old phrase? Like youth is wasted on the young or something like that. But anyway, so I was thinking, I was like, maybe I go back and I just spend the next 10 years of my life as a hobby learning the math and the physics I need to understand astronomy on a deeper level. But because I have that interest in astronomy, you know, it's like once you start learning how big the universe is and how little we know about it, and then you hear everyone's version of religion and you're just like, okay, guys, like, listen, I'm not saying you can't believe there's something out there because I don't know either, right? We don't know what houses the whole universe. We don't know. So to say that there definitely isn't, I can't say that either, right? But I can't hear another one of these stories out of a book that's been translated, you know, however many times, and you know, all those types of things.
I do think,
you know, to get that kind of advice from someone where you're like, it's like you don't want to be dismissive and be like, you're reading a fairy tale, but it feels that way when you hear some of these things. It's like, okay, now talk to me like an adult, please. I
get that way too. But I also, you know, living in Texas.
Born and raised.
Well, and like dating and the amount of times people have been like, this isn't going to work because you're not Christian. I'm like,
which is a very non-Christian thing.
But so you're surrounded by a lot of religious people, a lot of Christianity, and like Christianity, I think there's a lot of political stuff that gets into it. So taking that away, just looking at it at the core of what religion is, it's basically like it's structured spirituality, right? And I think for me, I felt boxed in by that structure and I felt limited. But some people having that like structure and kind of tangibility to it is like that's where they find their security. And so I think it's just, I don't think anyone's right or wrong in their religious beliefs necessarily. I mean, aside from, you know, you get to crazy people, but like looking at its core, no one's right or wrong in those religious beliefs. I think you choose the path that serves you best.
Right. No, it's just, you know, living in Texas. It's like so many decisions based on, it's like, I don't know if it's still this way, but I remember at one point our school textbooks, because we order the most, would control what a lot of the schools around the country got because the person who prints them, they're not going to print all these different versions. Yeah. And so we're having these religious discussions about what should be taught in school based off of religious beliefs. And then that could have the effect across the whole country. And it's like, okay, can we just, what happened to you believe this, but we're not going to cram it down everybody's throat?
Well, and that's where I talk
You
about
know?
like setting aside the political part of it,
Yeah.
just going to its core. But yeah, I think that's what turned me off a lot too, because I grew up Methodist.
Mhm.
And I think that's what turned me off to it a lot was just, it was so rigid. It's like, to be a good person, you have to be Christian. And it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
And you get into all the same old arguments of like, oh, so this baby born here that was killed in a war that never got baptized, it's like they're going to hell. And it's like, I don't have time for these conversations anymore.
Well, it's like, if that's what you're really, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I stopped caring, because it's like, okay, we've got an omnipotent being, created everything.
Yeah.
Right? Understands everything on a level, like he works in mysterious ways and you may not see it now. It's like, so they understand things on a deeper level than we ever will. Right. But if I don't say I love you, it hurts your feelings and I can't.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. That seems like something you guys made up.
Yeah. That's why I felt so boxed in, because I'm like, I feel like such a big part of spirituality is just not knowing and kind of having that blind faith that like there's something there. I'm not supposed to know what it is until I get there.
Well, and to me, again, with the astronomy stuff, I don't even want to argue with you. It's like, if you feel like this being, whatever your religion is, right? It's like we're talking about Christianity because we're here in Texas, but if we were somewhere else, it'd be a different religion that we're talking about, right? Okay, how much money can we dump into exploring this universe? Because I guess statistically speaking, there's a possibility that there is a white, bearded, old man Christian God that created us. It's possible. We can't 100% say no. But we could do as many experiments as we wanted to prove what it is out there.
Probably more Middle Eastern, not white.
Yeah,
but.
Right. I hear you. But, again, saying like...
But, I mean, if you're talking about Texas Christians.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's wearing a Cowboys jersey and he drives a Chevrolet.
Yeah.
But, no, it's like, but the universe is so big. Can we explore every single bit of it that we can and get all of your questions answered? I mean, if it is created by something, ultimately we would find that. So I'm all for it. Let's go. Because now we both win, right?
Yeah.
But it always seems like they want to keep it so separate. It's like, you don't have to be separate. You can learn. So that's where I check out real fast.
Well, I just think there's so much. I just like the unknown. And as an anxious person in my daily life, I'm like, I need to know everything. But that's the one thing I'm just like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people too. You hope there's something more, right? You hope that when the lights go out, that's not it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can't fathom that. And I don't know if it is or not, right?
Yeah.
Nobody,
Atheists scare me because I'm like...
Atheist to me is just another religion, though.
I know.
But you just take so much pride in being like, it's definitely nothing. And it's like,
yeah.
Okay, I love Ricky Gervais, and I agree with pretty much most of what he says, but it's like, okay, but pump the brakes, man. It's fine. If they want to believe in that, let them believe in it.
And I'm not trying to... But it's... I wouldn't be able to think that. That scares me to think that this is it,
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just as egotistical to go, it's definitely not that. It's like, I mean, how do you know? The only people who know have died, so we can't ask them, right?
Yeah. If that's the case, then like a very small percentage of us are right and everyone else is screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I get stuck in the, what like a Russian nesting doll is, where you got all the different dolls. Like you open a doll and there's a smaller one and a smaller one and a smaller one. Okay. And so to me, I can't help think of everything is contained, right? So, they used to think Earth was all you had, and then they realized, oh, there's planets, so we're in a solar system, and they're like, well, that's the whole universe. And then they realized, oh, we're in the Milky Way galaxy, so that's all the universe. And now they know there's hundreds of trillions of galaxies, and it's expanding and all this. So
talk about existential crisis.
But you still wonder, it's like, okay, but then, what houses that? Doesn't something have to house something? Even if the universe, no gods, no religions, no nothing, what was the reason the universe ever existed at all?
Yeah.
It's like was something, the whole concept of something from nothing, that it's like, well, why would a universe need to be created? And then what outside of that needed to create it, and now I'm just stuck in this loop.
Well, and it's like,
how far does it go?
How and why did it become so intricate? And it is, that's one of, you're like, why do I matter?
Those are my most annoying moments, though, is there'll be like an incredible scientific video online or something, and you'll go through the comments, and instead of someone appreciating the science behind it, they're just like, see, proof that God exists. And you're like, can we just not have that conversation right now, please? We were just,
That sounds like my mom.
Yeah, and it's like, maybe that's,
Yeah.
because on some hand, it's like, yeah, that's all incredibly impressive, whether someone created it or didn't. It's all wild, but why was that the first way we go,
I know. It's like you can find anything to kind of prove your point, no matter what religion or whatever, and it's all just people see what they want to see.
I would think South Carolina would be similar to Texas in terms of that. Is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's yeah, I won't get into that.
As much as that bothers me, though, I do not want to move to like a hyper liberal area either. Like I have no desire to go to the extreme the other way at all.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I never want to live anywhere that's like super like far one way or the other. I think being in a more moderate place helps you think more independently. And so even though we're in Texas, being in like the Metroplex, there's a lot more moderation.
People
there.
shit on us here, but I think Dallas is way more diverse and understanding than people would like to admit. This is a pretty good city to live in.
Yeah, especially like when you're in it.
Yeah. We live in I know, right? You say Dallas, people are like, I live in Dallas. And you're like, Frisco?
Yeah.
No, my wife and I, we live Dallas proper. We were in Dallas, just like you. And it's like, it's a good city. It's like, there's always things that are going to annoy you here and there. But, I mean, the amount of variety you get around here is pretty wild.
Yeah. And especially, again, like something that comedy has brought me is I'm around so much more of that. Yeah.
Well, just a place like DCC, right? You can see that hyper liberal person that we were talking about, and you can see that Christian conservative at the same audience.
Yeah.
And it's like, isn't that what you want? Isn't it just figuring out how to blend all this together,
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So when did you decide agnostic? When was that revelation for you that, I don't know about this stuff? You said mom was religious. Was dad?
Yeah. So I grew up in a really, really conservative, like Republican Christian household. And then I went to a liberal arts school. And that's when I started kind of being like, oh, I don't know if I agree with everything I was like taught growing up. And so it was weird. Like, who was it? Was it Obama and was it Romney? Was it that?
When they were running against each other?
Yeah. I think it was that year. It was the first time I could vote. And I didn't vote because I was so confused because my views were changing. And so, I'd say probably about maybe after my freshman year of college, I was like, no, I think I might be lean more left. And just from there, it kind of that started like religion, and I started just questioning all these values I'd grown up with. And I'd been kind of turned off by like, not Christianity, I want to say, but a lot of the ways people, advocated for Christianity. And even within my family. And
Gandhi's got a great quote where he says, I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. They're so unlike your Christ.
Yeah.
And I always thought that kind of summed it up really well.
Yeah.
Like, the philosophy is really great.
Yeah, and I never want to... I grew up in a great church. I loved going to youth group there and stuff. And, I'm not against, and dating. I don't know if I'll ever have kids, but if I did, it's like I'm not against them growing up in that. It's just I want them to know, like, when they get to the age where they can make their own decisions, they can make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And for me, I just found that, I felt so boxed in by like knowing everything. And I just thought there was more magic in not knowing.
Yeah.
And freedom.
We're about to go through all that. My wife, her family's more religious, so they're going to want to, they like to do, church on Easter and those things still. And she's like, are you going to do those things? I was like, no. And she's like, well, are you going to not let him? I was like, no, you can take him to those. But when he comes home and he asks me some questions, I'm going to give him my version too.
Yeah.
And we're going to let him go wherever.
Well, it's like they need to know that there are these different things that exist, or else they're going to go out into the world and be like, what's happening?
Yeah. And she's like, we'll have, even in our marriage, we'll have those conversations. And it's like, don't forget too, like there's a bunch of pedophiles there who just want to be around kids. It's like, we always have to think about those things too, that you're not good. Like, you ever meet those people who are like, oh yeah, I like them, good Christian person. And it's like, whoa. That doesn't set the bar,
I came back from, this was a big kicker too. I came back, I think it was freshman year of college for Thanksgiving, and like the headlines all across the news was my pastor had been arrested in a prostitution sting.
Oh, wow.
So I say I went to a great, he started like my senior year of high school. I never liked him. I thought he was, you can look at a guy and you're like, he's a creep. Yeah, he was. But before that, there was this one, Pastor Susan. She was phenomenal. And so, yeah, it served me at that time in my life, but it no longer served me. So
yeah, no, I get it.
But yeah, that was funny, Pastor Michael.
Did he get convicted?
I think so.
Because I'll still give people leeway. Like if you have an accusation, I'll wait for the court case.
Well, he was married with a kid too.
It's all
Yeah.
Come on, it's like that's one of the old jokes too. It's like the preacher who's speaking out against homosexuality always ends up being found with like a 19-year-old dude or something.
Yeah.
it's too convenient. But
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I forgot I was going to ask you about swimming. Because did you like swimming as a sport? Did you enjoy it? Because we're thinking about sports for my son, and it's like I always dreamed of like I like to run, I like to cycle. So naturally, it's like if I could get swimming down, I could do a triathlon.
Yeah.
But then when you go to swim as an adult and you've never had any like formal, you're like, God, I'm horrible at swimming. What got you into swimming to begin with? I'm trying to decide if I want to push him into something like that.
So I played soccer. Like that was my passion growing up, was soccer. And then, but I was mediocre at it. And not to say I was a phenomenal swimmer, very mediocre too, but in the long run. But yeah, I joined a summer swim team because my best friend was doing it. And my parents were like, oh, you're good at this. You could definitely get a scholarship. So they kind of made me quit soccer to do swimming. So I was forced into it. Yeah. Essentially. And it's a tough sport to be forced into. It's like waking up at like 4 a.m. to go to your first practice. Mm-hmm. It's like leave the house at 4:30 in the morning and get home at 7:30. Like, I mean, just, it's a really grueling sport.
Would you have done it again?
So that's what I would say, is I don't regret doing it. I love that I did it. And I cherish those times, but I would never go back and do it again.
When was the last time you just went and like swam a couple laps? Do you even do it now for exercise? Like, is it like
I think I've done it once since like 2017.
Oh, so you definitely don't love it then.
No, well, it's hard to find accessible pools that are also clean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like as a collegiate athlete, you're used to like, better well-kept pools.
It's a pool just for you.
It's like you don't want a pool that a bunch of kids and stuff. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, but yeah. So it was a love-hate relationship for sure. And I think once I got to college and I was like, no, this is my decision, and I kind of took ownership over like I'm choosing to do this. I fell in love with it, and then by that time I graduated, and I felt like my good times of the relationship with it were just way too short. So
is there anything in swimming where it wrecks your body a certain way?
And all our shoulders
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I have issues.
What were your events that you did?
So they switched up a little bit when I was younger, but in college it was 200 breaststroke, 400 IM.
What's IM?
Individual medley, so it's like 400 IM would be like 100 of each stroke, so four laps of each stroke.
Huh.
Yeah.
Anytime I try to swim like an actual lap where you think like, okay, I'm gonna like, I don't even really know the form, but you see like you're like, okay, I know I need to have like my head down and stuff. So you're trying to stay in like a slipstream or whatever. But then when you try to do it the right way and you realize how much an average person panics when they can't just take a breath whenever they want, and all I think about is like, there's not a lifeguard here. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to sink to the bottom, and this is a dumb way to die.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think a lot of people are like, it's how do you swim that much? And I think people don't realize when your stroke is shit, like how much energy you're exhausting. If you've got a good technique, I can be out of shape and swim more than anyone who's in great shape and with not great technique. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can an adult get great technique, you think? Or is it?
Yeah. I've taught adults. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, part of me is like, okay.
Yeah.
You run, you cycle. If you swim, you could do like an Ironman.
Yeah.
And that would be a fun achievement. But then you think about, you'll watch the clip of them just sprinting into all that chaos in the water. And it's like every now and then somebody dies in an Ironman.
Yeah. Well, and open water swimming is very different.
Yeah.
Too.
But, that's, I don't know.
But yeah. So for your son, I'd say I'm really proud of it. I don't regret it at all, but it would be really tough to go back, and it was tough.
Yeah. I heard this guy talking about swimmers' physiques, right? Because people will go, oh, swimming, it's great for your body, which it is.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks they're going to get cut like Michael Phelps, And he was saying the great swimmers that have those bodies, they were going to have those bodies regardless. They just went into swimming because they had those bodies.
Well, and Michael Phelps was like sprint mid-distance.
He's a freak.
I know. We've been at it for a while. Like sprint mid-distance. But but like long distance swimmers don't have that kind of muscle tone because they need the fat like build up for those longer races.
To float or for the energy?
I mean, your body starts to like eat away. I forget the like.
Well, I guess it's the same as running, right?
Yeah, we did in college. The physio department, whatever, they did like a test on us where they took everyone's BMIs like with this water tank. It was like super accurate, and compared that to like what kind of swimming they do. And the long distance swimmers who are burning more calories had like a higher fat content because they need that storage so their bodies don't just start eating away at themselves, I think is what it was. So, yeah.
No, so that's exactly like running then. Yeah. Which is that's my excuse. I'm like, I need the fat. I need the fat because I run.
Yeah. And they're like, we're working so much harder. Why don't we have a 6-pack like them? And it's like,
I was trying to explain that to somebody that, because I'm running longer distances, and that doesn't necessarily coincide with weight loss.
Yeah.
It's like you got to be real strict because there's all these other things. I think you're producing more cortisol because you're doing these longer distances, which makes you hold on to more fat, I think. But your body's saying, oh, no, we need to keep this fat because you're going to use it later. And so when I'm not running, I can lose weight easier.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tell Lawrence Rosales that. I was like, you'd be surprised, like when you run, it doesn't mean you lose weight. And he's like, I think you're wrong. Like,
it does to a point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's also, though, I did have a pint of ice cream, so that's probably it. But
oh, dude.
Yeah, my diet's atrocious.
Mine is too, and I think it's because I
you're a bad eater?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I think just because I could do that when I was younger. And it
If
hasn't caught up to me yet, but I'm sure it will.
If I was going to have any addiction, I would say it's food.
Yeah.
Food is the hardest thing for me.
Yeah, it's just
tricky.
a comfort food. And I want to eat healthy, but God, salads are boring.
Salads are boring, yeah. Yeah, and like sweet things are delicious. And why doesn't, broccoli taste like ice cream? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. So when I was growing up, great metabolism, played a lot of sports. So I was a very slender person, like through high school, and but we were raised with no thoughts about diet. Like my family didn't really, like on the way to school, we might get like a Dr. Pepper and a cinnamon roll for breakfast, and then we're wondering why can't I focus in school? Huh?
Yeah, you grew up rural too, right?
Small town.
Okay,
but it wasn't like
so like corn was considered a vegetable.
Yes.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, and, also it was in the boom of, like the popularity of like microwavable meals and those things, so none of it's nutrition. And it's like, man, I'm really hoping I can get my son good nutrition because it's like, if you can never have a bad diet, you're more likely to keep a good one, but
well, it's just about forming habits at the young age.
I know, but I got to change all those now. So he gets those habits, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure.
Oh my God. And then just like, the crushing realization, I don't remember exactly when it was in my 30s, of like, your metabolism just halts. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. I stopped.
Are you struggling to keep weight on? Is that your type of thing?
I've always struggled to keep weight on. Yeah.
Which is weird to bitch about, but it's a real thing, right? Like people don't get that sometimes people want to keep weight.
Yeah. Well, it's also like as I age, if I don't keep the weight on, the wrinkles come out more.
Oh, yeah.
And so, again, it's one of those things I try not to think about too much, but it's also like I want to be a healthy weight.
The wrinkles, that's a real thing though, of like, when you see someone who's been heavy most of their life and then they lose weight, it's like their body looks great, but their face looks sunken because they lose all that little bit of fat going around. That's a real thing. But you can just get Botox for that now, right?
Filler.
Does it have to be filler?
Botox is for movement. Filler is to fill the voids.
Don't do the filler then. Avoid that if you can.
I know. It's just, people are overdoing it.
Have you seen those pillow face people?
Yeah.
That's insane. Does that go away?
I mean, filler, yeah, it eventually goes away, but they're also starting to realize that it has like these long-term effects now too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like these people getting lip filler too. It's like that's stretching out your skin. So once you start doing it, it's kind of hard to stop.
Yeah, it's like when you see a chronically obese person lose weight and then they've got the extra skin.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's like it's great that you're healthy, but they still feel, I mean, they feel better than when they were fat, but they still feel, you know, I'm sure they feel insecure about the skin, and that's why so many of them go get the surgeries to cut it off.
And I'm not trying to hate on people who do. I just think there's so much pressure, and I hate the pressure. And it's all this influencer stuff, right? It's like, and everyone's like, it's okay if you admit to it, and it's like, no, you're telling people to spend all their money on whatever.
Well, so we're about, let's see, you said you're 31?
Yeah.
So when did you first get a cell phone? What age do you think?
I think I was 12, but I shared it with my sister, who was 5 years younger than me, and it pissed me off.
I got my first one when I was 16, but, you know, like Facebook and stuff, I think I was the last generation, me and a couple more people, to be born before those things even really existed.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you were in middle school and high school, were you already having social media, do you think?
High school.
High school? Yeah. So through my high school, none.
Yeah.
Right? And you definitely see it. Like, these younger generations are so hard on each other about shit that doesn't matter to people.
Even so, my sister's 5 years younger than me, and even that difference, it's like she was so much more fashionable and like just had this just this natural sense because she was seeing it all the time. And it's like I still, up to a few years ago, would have to consult her on outfits.
Yeah, because you're on the edge, right? You had fun social media, but you also had social media when it was great. Like when you first started with it, it wasn't anything like what it is. It was really a fun place. You stayed connected with your friends.
It was before it was a business for some people.
Yes, there were no ads. There were no sponsors. It was just like, oh, so-and-so went on a vacation. Look at these pictures. This is great. I mean, that was like the purest form of it. And trying to explain, it's like, no. Social media used to be really, really awesome. And it's like, it was nothing like what it is now. And yeah, it's wild. The standards that are set, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it makes me really... I wouldn't have been able to grow up in that. I would have been so self-conscious all the time. And
and they wonder why, like, you know, depression, suicide, these things are on the rise. It's like, have you looked? You know, because before social media, those were the claims about like magazine ads, you know, these unrealistic expectations on all these covers. And it's like, yeah, but now the magazines don't even matter. You're seeing 1,000 times that every day.
You open up Instagram to message someone back, and it's there. Yeah, and it's also lifestyle too. You know, you see all these people on these like lavish vacations, and I don't know. There's a lot of pressures.
We live here in Dallas, and I constantly think, it's like, look, I know there are a lot of people with money in Dallas, like, and I don't mean a little money. I mean like millionaires and billionaires. I know we have them here, but not that many.
The $100,000 millionaire.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the people who, it's like, why do you have a G-Wagon?
Yeah.
You know, we live in the same neighborhood. We're not a G-Wagon neighborhood. I mean, you can do that, but what is the urge to have that?
Well, let's not judge because you're Porsche.
Yeah, but I won't do that if I'm never in a financially responsible place to do that. It's not going to happen. You know, that's like that would be nice. That would be a fun car to have.
G-Wagon's different, but yeah.
Well, you know, G-Wagon's like...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a luxury off-road vehicle. How many of those do you see off-road? You don't see
how many luxury people are going off-road?
Yeah. How many of us are like, oh, I take this out to Big Bend when I go camping?
Yeah, a Jeep will suffice.
Yeah, but just, I mean, at one point, I don't know, man, I wish I had somebody like on Rogan's podcast to fact check me. But at one point, I think we sold more Mercedes per capita in Dallas than Germany. Like the cities in Germany. Like we were selling that many. And it's like, I know they have more affordable Mercedes, but also you see people driving these ones that you know aren't the cheap ones. And you're like, do you have that money?
Yeah.
Do you have that money? And it's just weird. It's just this race that you're in with no one. Whereas I think pre-social media, you caught the tail end of it, but it's like the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s were such a great time to grow up in because there was so much less of that.
Yeah.
You know, again, I had that Geo Metro because none of my friends would have ever judged me about driving a Geo Metro.
Yeah.
They would,
well,
you know.
That's what I found in comedy is before that I was feeling so much it was like, why am I not doing this? Why haven't I reached this level in my career that I can afford this? And with comedy, it's like, that's not people's focus. And people just don't. There's so many different walks of life. People don't care.
No.
It's fine. And I love it. I feel so much more secure in this space.
Yeah. The only thing with comedy is it can get real easy to drift into that with the amount of clips you see people post.
Yeah, that's true.
Where they curate a false sense of success in their comedy career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you're doing well. But like you know those people who are like, at another sold out show, and it's like they're the feature for the headliner that sold it out. And it's like, hey, isn't it just cool enough that you're the feature on a sold out show? Why don't we just tell it how it really is? Because that's also really awesome that you're getting to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think my favorite I've seen is someone posted like, no more tickets available for the show tonight. And it wasn't because it was sold out. It was because the show was canceled.
Oh. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been here long enough. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, I'm real excited to see. Like I said, I love watching y'all develop, and like you're 2 years in now, roughly. So like you're not going anywhere. This is your.
I hope not.
No, you're a comic,
Yeah.
and now it's just going to be, where does she go from here? It's really exciting. Girls' Night Out is, what is that? Every month or every other month?
Every other month. So the next one will be March 14th.
Okay, yeah, and that's DCC.
Yeah, it's always on Fridays.
Go check it out.
Dallas
Cool
Comedy
show.
Club. Yeah.
What else? Anything else you got coming up? This will be out this week.
My brain's not working. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Adderall.
I'll be around.
Sponsored by Adderall.
Yeah, for my whole life.
Well, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.